G'day. I do daily live streams, and what I've been trying to do of late is turn them into podcasts. And one of the issues I've been having with the podcasts that I've been generating using tools like Notebook LM or JellyPod is that the content of the podcast seems to miss the mark. So in this live stream that we're doing today, what we're looking at is how can we create prompts that allow us to convert great live stream information into great podcast information without focusing on the wrong areas. I'm Happy Dave. Let's get into it. So what I'll start off with is talking about what we're doing today. We're going to look at how to turn a live stream into a polished podcast, and I'll do it by talking about a couple of live streams I did recently, and then we'll move directly into the prompt engineering part of it. So I've recently been doing an app a day live stream. Now I'm doing this with Replit, which is an AI pair programmer. And the first application that I built was this little micro app manager. The idea is each time I did an application, I could add it to the list. This is the application app list manager. Then I moved on to the video recording name sequence. And with that particular application, I was able to say add chapters and parts and the labels and just create individual code bases. Now, what's been happening, and we can see it over here actually, I might just take us over to a web view for a second and say, here is that particular application that I was talking about, and I can add some information. It's all quite dynamic. If I press copy here, that value will be available. But if we go to this particular application and we try to start it, not that one, the other one I've got, which I'm not seeing. The problem I've been running is that Replit has bugs. It has lots of bugs. And not only does it have bugs, it has it has challenges that I've been encountering in the live stream, and I want to be able to communicate that not so much in the exploratory format that you're seeing in my live streams, but in a podcast. So let's go and have a look at something. So here we've got some podcasts that I've done recently. And these are tests, so they're just taking the live stream information and sending it straight to Notebook LM as is, and seeing what it comes up with a little bit of minor prompt engineering to format it. So I'll just hit a few seconds of this one.
So have you ever opened up a folder on your computer and it's just
So that's the first example, and then we've got a second example here, and it just starts with the lady. It's a different format.
Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
So this is where I'm at the moment, creating those little podcasts, adding some graphics, adding concepts like B-roll over the top. And I've already done this before on the Faceless YouTube channel, AITLDR. What we've been doing over there is a podcast around Cozy Cafe. And if we run this one, I'll just hit play. It's a more polished version at the moment.
Cozy Cafe.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can see that had intros, it had different stuff. But what I would love to be able to do is take a live stream like the one I'm doing now, which will probably go for about an hour, and convert it into a podcast and be able to focus on certain areas of the podcast. So let's just head over to the preliminary research that I've done this morning. So when I do a podcast or when I do a live stream, I'll talk about a whole lot of stuff, and it's weaves around as I go through and I encounter different problems. Now, when let's say the live stream at the moment is on building an application. I don't specifically want the podcast to be about building that application. That's more the scenario. That's the example. What I want to do is look at the challenges that I had during the live stream and extract them out and have them as the main talking points. I also might want to have a certain focus within the live stream, and if I just give it to Notebook LM or JellyPod, it will pick one for me rather than allowing me to change it. Some of the other areas I want scenarios not to be included. I also want to be able to talk about calls to action, and you can see a lot of the different stuff that's mentioned here. Actually, let's just talk briefly about balanced mentions. So one of the problems I see with live streams or podcasts being generated by Notebook LM is, let's say it's talking about Appy Dave, which is who I am. It feels like an incredible sales pitch towards Appy Dave. It's like every third word is Appy Dave, Appy Dave, Appy Dave, and it just feels totally wrong. Now, if I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast and he's talking about Elon Musk, he would mention him at the beginning, but it wouldn't be saying that name over and over again. So these are the sorts of problems that I'm trying to deal with. So this morning what I did was I started off with this idea, video transcript podcast brief. That's what we're trying to do today. And creating the perfect podcast script using something like Notebook LM. So I went through and I started having a conversation. I started developing post workflows, and we got to what we're at the end. So the first thing is what we're building is a podcast briefing engine. So it's not about creating the podcast, it's about building the actual brief. That's what we're trying to do. And it's really covering three concepts: extract information, refine, and validate. These are the things that we want to do. So what I've set up ahead of time is just two chats. One where I would like to develop some prompts, and one where I would like to play around with the outputs from each of the prompts. And these are the prompts that we're looking to go through. Now, as a little bit of extra context, let's just bring up a Visual Studio for a second, and we might bring it up with a terminal as well. So down in this window right here, we've got a transcript, 56 minute transcript that I did earlier, and that one will be right here. That's that one. I've also got another transcript right here, and we've got one being developed. We're at the 42-minute mark. Now, funnily enough, I'm using Whisper AI, Python implementation of it. I've had it for about since it came out, about a year, and I've never even updated it. So it works quite well, but it's slow. It takes, to do an hour of transcription, it takes about an hour. So that's still in the middle of processing at the moment. But the goal really is to come over to these transcripts that we've got here and use them as the baseline. Now, for this, I may only work on the first one, the App List Manager, and we saw that tool earlier. So let us come back to GPT and say, so I'm trying to, this is very fluid. This is just me trying to figure stuff out. So what I might do is come over here and start a conversation that says, you are going to help me develop a bunch of prompts, and here is the scenario that I would like you to work towards. By the way, I'm giving you the scenario now, but you're not meant to create prompts until I tell you so. Make sense? So if that works, it's just going to say yay. So what we might do is come up to here and go, can you synthesize and create a detailed description of the main concepts that we've been talking about in this particular conversation? What I'm trying to do here is just pull over a bit of context for the other chat window. So podcast briefing, workflow, talking points, hidden gems. Okay, so this is a whole lot of information we've got. I'm just going to copy that information and say, I'm going to give you both a ASCII formatted structure and a rich text formatted structure so that you know where we're starting from. Say yay. So we'll take that information and we'll also take the information I got here. Now they're probably the same information, but that's okay. I wanted to understand that I like both the ASCII format. I find it more readable for myself when I just want to see things more like a mind map would do. And let's get out of Siri and say, if you understand the context of the information that I've just given you, how would you go about creating the first prompt? What I want you to do is tell me what you think the first prompt is in a short heading. Give me a short overview of what you're going to do, and then follow it up with the actual prompt, assuming that the input for the prompt is a transcript that could be anywhere up to 1 hour in length. So hopefully we'll see the first one, overview. The first step in the workflow is to identify all the talking points. So you give it a 1 hour conversation, a live stream, and there's going to be a bunch of things talked about. So this is all we're trying to identify. So what's the prompt? It's got, given the following transcript for up to 1 hour in length. Okay, let's just remove that. Can you remove the up to 1 hour in length? Because that won't actually be relevant to the prompt. Identify all the possible talking points. Should include key discussion, recurring themes, notable statements. This is great. So if I was doing this in a workflow engine, what I'd probably do, and do I have one available? That one will do. I'd take it over to a list of steps that we would be working through, and this would just be the first step. But we're not doing that today. We're just doing the prompt engineering. So let's pop over here and go, okay, given the following transcript, notable, let's not even worry about reading it. I pretty much trust what it's going to be, and I'm just going to test it. This is where we'll test it. So here I've put the prompt, and now here we'll just say transcript. Okay. And what I might also do, can you make sure that any prompt that you give me from now on has the following statement at the end? This way I can just copy these and paste in the extra information. So let's go with that. Let's paste in that. Didn't really need to do it in that particular case. And we will jump over to, let's bring up a VS Code web view at the moment. Sorry, it's a GPT VS Code view, this one. And we will grab this transcript. So how many lines is it? It is 900 lines, which should be okay for the context window we're running with. And it's at this point that it becomes a little debatable as to whether you need to do this every time, but for completeness, this can be quite useful. So we'll just run it and see what the key talking points were on that video that I did a week or two ago. Okay, so let's see what we got here. GPT view, and we go, it was a 30-day challenge with Replit, which is spelt wrong. Goal, 30 apps in 30 days, focus on productivity, automation, and assisted development. Target audience is developers, business owners, and entrepreneurs. This is all quite correct. So let's just say, ensure that the app is called Replit, not Replit. I think that's right. Just check. Yep, that is check. So we've got, it's an AI pair programming tool. So it says here that it's targeting developers, which is true, but later on, and we'll figure this out, this is not who I want to target the podcast at. I actually want to target it at the business owners and entrepreneurs, because not only is it a coding tool, it's a no-code or a low-code tool, which means a traditional business owner who wants to automate something could use this. But we look through this and we say we've got pair programming, that's cool. Application requirements and workflow. Okay, that's talking about what it does. Building and managing an application list. This is how we use it. It talks about the debugging and iteration. So these are some of the areas that I'd like to see listed in the podcast, because what I want to do with this is I want to educate people on the best practices of the tool in different no-code scenarios. I don't specifically want to talk about the 30 apps in 30 days. Well, I may do, but you know, one thing else I think we're going to do is start one more conversation. In fact, let's not do it that way. Let's go and right click on this and make sure it's in the same area. And let's just give it a conversation name before we go. So building playground, example outputs. Now, the reason this is going to be important with your prompt engineering is that we are going to have a heck of a lot of information going on in here, of which we've got the same input coming through quite a bit. We have a prompt, which is in there somewhere, and then we have an output. Now, you do a few of these and this information will disappear. Like it won't remember it effectively. So I'm just keeping the outputs over here as well. So what we'll do is we'll just take that and say, I want one other thing here. Ensure that the app is called Replit, not Replet. Ensure that you start the response with just a really brief summary of what the prompt was meant to be doing. Okay, so now we should just get a little heading about the prompt. Okay, and then we get the output and we've got the typo dealt with. So I'm going to take this. So we've got both the goal of the prompt and what we actually got out of it all. And we're just capturing this information and putting it over here with a read statement, because I don't actually want it to do anything. I just want it to absorb the information. And I handle that by using a custom instruction. Okay, let's move on to the next concept. So, okay. Right, you are going to give me a bunch of prompts. Okay. Now what I'd like is just a little table in rich text format that shows me the prompts that were built and the prompts that are still to be done. You don't need to do the details of the prompts, just the simple names or titles for each area that we're working on. This one would be called extracting all possible talking points, and it is done, but I do want to know what the next ones are. So, oh, that's good. It's even given us a stage. Yeah, to do, done. That's a lot of information that we're going through in this conversation. So extracting all possible talking points, filtering and merging talking points. Okay. Discarding irrelevant. Okay. Can you combine the filtering, merging and discarding of irrelevant talking points into a single concept called what talking points to focus on? And then can you go and create a prompt for that, please? So we can reduce the complexity. I don't need both. So we're now working on this particular area. It's a to-do, but it should actually get done. Okay. Given the following list of extracted talking points from the live stream transcript, refine them by Okay. This prompt is actually problematic because while the starting point is good, it doesn't ask the human any questions. It just makes the assumption that you're going to do all the work, but this is a human interaction. Okay, this is good, but I think I only need 3 points and I need them to be simpler. Just simple questions would be fine that you would ask a human. Yeah, perfect. Okay, let's take that information and figure out once we'll finalize. Yeah, okay, cool. That's good. So this is where, this is given the following transcript. Okay. So there are our talking points. I think we might not do the following transcript. I think we'll just go straight in there and paste this in. Review the following list. So it's basically this. Now I feel like I've got too much complexity going on at the moment, but that's one of the things that happens when you start doing prompt engineering and testing your workflows, is that you figure out what works, what doesn't, dynamically, like we're doing right now. So merged or consolidated, combined pair programming and developer efficiency with lessons in yeah, cool, that's cool. Replet's use of, great. Debugging and iterating, yep. Merged, building and managing key talk, okay. Final structure, 30-day challenge with Replit. AI efficiency is, okay, that's cool. This is good. Defining and managing application workflows. AI task execution. Final takeaways. Okay, I just want to read through this a little bit while we're looking at it. Key talking points. Because I haven't done this for a week or two, I'm trying to remember which areas I really want to focus on. And sometimes I won't actually know it until the podcast is created and I listen to it. But points to remove and yeah. Yeah, that's good. It's automatically removes stuff. This went in a totally different direction to what I was expecting. I thought I was going to have more involvement in this, and it's kind of done it for me. And it's not a bad job, so I think I might leave it for there. So let's just come back and say, this is complete. Thank you. Next. Now we should, let's see what we're gonna do. Should we take all of this information? Let's refine the list down to there, and we'll just paste it in here. Read. Just capturing the key takeaways as we go through it. Now, at that point, we're done. Identify hidden gems. Okay. Can you merge the identify hidden gems into one prompt title, and can you build the prompt for it, please? So if this was a prompt workflow, we are up to 3 prompts. 2 of them are just on the talking points. So what's possibly out there and what do we want to focus on once we know what's out there. And the next one is just finding the hidden gems. And that could be like a catchphrase that I used. It could be just like things unexpectedly happen. And so you want to capture this information because it might be useful in the podcast. So we go down and we look. Some of the most are unplanned moments, unexpected yet compelling phrases, fresh perspectives, or emotional impact statements. The purpose of this step is to surface these hidden gems. Great. So the prompt: review the following transcript and look for hidden gems, insights, or moments that were particularly compelling. Consider where there are any unexpected but valuable insights. Identify areas that weren't the main focus. Which phrases or expressions? Where are the moments of strong emotional or storytelling? Okay, cool. Let's take all of that, and I will add the transcript this time, just because I feel like it would have disappeared over time. So we'll just paste that in and see what we get. So are there any applications that I could create just to make my life more productive in that particular field? This frames the challenge not just as a tech experiment, but as a personal productivity tool. This is cool. That's exactly what I'm trying to achieve with the podcast. I want to share that you don't have to be a programmer to write software. You just have to have a need. And what's the need? You want to improve your productivity. Now, something to know is that I've been developing for a long time, but it's not these days, like 30 years into it, it's not what I would call my core competency. That just doesn't feel right. Okay, a candid admission that even an experienced developer loses technical sharpness, but problem solving skills and ability to use the AI tools remain valuable. Okay, well so obviously I said something odd, but it figured out the intent, and the intent is that I've been developing for a long time, but it's not the main area that I work in. So you lose the skills, especially if you're doing AI prompt engineering all the time. So schedule tasks for running daily research. Okay, what's this? The idea of an automated incremental learning is compelling, using AI to fill in knowledge gaps. So this was a really cool idea, is that I could use the ChatGPT task management tool to actually do research for me on a daily basis on what we were talking about. I really need to state that. This is good, but it does not highlight enough that I was using the new capabilities to explore questions that I had on a daily basis. We'll leave that there, so that's cool. I wonder if we're really trying to go deep like this now, because it's really about building the prompts, not actually finishing off the podcast. The podcast will come later, but engaging in unique phrases, one-shot prompts, cool. What I learnt today, that's cool. So I think I'll just take that information that I added. I'm not going to look further, but I will take the response of all of this. Okay, you did not repeat the complete version. I need all the information so I can copy it. We'll take that. Now we're 30 minutes into the podcast and we're 3 or 4 prompts in. So this could be a relatively long podcast. You did not give me a complete version of the entire document. Siri, either I said things wrong or Siri just misinterpreted me. Okay, so this is what we want. Great. Give me that information one more time, but make sure you include a summary of the prompt ahead of it, because I'm pasting this into a different document. By the way, remember to always do that. It won't, because there's too much context in this particular window. Okay, we'll take this information and we will pull it over here and say read. Great, let's move on to the next one. Next prompt. We are finished with this prompt. Let's move on to the next one. Show me the table. Now we got generate third person questions, create lives, developing broader recurring questions. No, so we don't need two. Okay. Third person questions should be simplified into a single statement. And here's what we're looking for. Is there 1, 2, or 3 questions that you, as a podcast host, would like to ask the person of interest, in this case, Appy Dave, for him to reply to? Keep in mind that these questions might be optional, but what would they be? So one of the things that's coming with these different podcast fields is the ability for the host to interact with the target subject, which is me in this case. So I want to make sure that it asks me questions. Great. Based on the following transcript, what 1, 2, or 3 that you as a podcaster, yeah, okay, that's cool. Great. Let's just take that information. We'll just make sure that the transcript is in there. I'm just going to come back here and say, can you make sure you merge those 2 third person question points into one called creating questions for the guest, and mark it as done. So let's see what questions it's coming up with. What we're expecting here is that we've got this section done and we're getting through them quickly, mainly because there were too many, and we can combine a few of these. What I find is that the different paths that you might want to go off are more conversational in nature. You can't really predefine everything, so you shouldn't try to predefine everything. You should just have a more general encompassing thing. If anything's wrong, use a bit of conversation to fix it up then. So what do we got? You mentioned using ChatGPT's task research capabilities to automate daily learning. Can you walk us through the process of how it works and the impact on the project? Awesome, right? This gives me the ability to go and talk about a different topic that's really relevant at the moment, and that's GPT tasks and the deep research module. Okay, the reality of building 30 apps. Now that you're in the midst of it, what's been the biggest surprises? Well, Replit has been a crappy, bug-riddled product so far. So these are, I know they're improving. I don't want to bag them out too much because I think it's going to be a good product, but my gosh, it's been difficult. So this is something I could talk about. The role of AI pair programmers. You've talked about Yeah, so this is a really interesting topic. I recently developed a new paradigm called AVD, rather than test-driven development or code-first development. This was, I can't remember what the AVD stands for, but it's really about getting the AI developers to think of what in the workflow they need to consider and do logging around it. So these are great questions that I could put into a podcast as we go through. So what we'll do is we'll just grab this information and we'll jump over here. And what do we got? Great. You didn't put the basic prompt summary in front of this answer. Cool. Because this final set of data that we're just reading at the moment is where I will actually build my final prompt from, I think, and it's good that it has both summarized information, but also the prompt that led to the summarized information. So then we pop in over here and we go, that's done. Define focal points, generate possible refine. Okay. I'm going to fix one thing here all the way through. So define focal points should be one item. Balance mentions. Incorporate brand and style. Okay. Calls to action. Finalize the podcast brief. And then postscript review. Okay. Let's just take these through here. For the following, can you make sure that there is only one topic, not two topics for each group? So define focal point should combine the two versions of it into one statement. The balance mentions should do the same thing as well. Can you do it for the following? Now, I'm not sure whether the last two I want to do that. I do potentially want a fair bit more control there, but I want to just make this faster to get through. So defining the focal point, selecting the main focus, that third podcast finished translating, which is good. Selecting the main focus. Okay. Well, what just happened there? Let's come back over here. Develop a prompt for selecting the main focus. Review the following refined list of talking points and determine the central focus for the podcast. Consider which best represent the core theme of the discussion. You know what it's not done is ask me what the core theme is. This is not correct. I think we're missing a point, which means that we may need to go back to two prompts. First point is, where do you want to focus this podcast? What are the main ideas you want? In fact, no, wrong. The information here is correct, but it's coming from the point of view of the AI agent is going to do the work. Not once did it ask a question of the human to get clarity. So all of these really need to be considered questions, not go off and do things. The comma, the actual go off and do things should happen automatically after the questions have been answered. Fantastic. And I'll keep it really simple by not going deep into this. I would go deeper into this if I was doing it for an actual podcast, but this is just testing out the prompts. The other thing to be aware of is that every prompt that we've developed here is not finished. It's when you start using them in anger, which means using them in the real world, you start to find out what does and doesn't work. So these are just starter prompts at the moment. So we'll take that information and we'll say, okay. Now, what do I want to talk about? Let's just come back up here. They're the questions, so they're no good. Let's go back up. Look. We'll just keep it very simple. The main focus should be twofold. Anyone should be able to use simple one-shot prompt requirements documents to build simple automations for their business. Secondary focus is that working with an AI pair programmer has, I don't know how to say this word, peculiarities and differences to a human programmer that you need to be aware of how to address. And a third, though I would put this focus before the second, is that try to only work with small focused prompts. If you try to do too much in a prompt, will not give you the results you actually asked for. When you give me the answer, make sure you include a summary of the prompt in front of it. So, the goal is to determine the main focus of the episode and assess whether it aligns with the podcast goals. The core theme should be to emphasize: 1, anyone can use. Yep. 2, they've got unique differences to humans, and keeping prompts small and focused. That's what I'd love to cover. 3 points. The main one and the first one being that one-shot prompts is something anyone can do. Anyone should be able to use simple one-shot requirements documents to build simple automations for their business. Okay. I'm not supporting themes. This is cool. So we got one main focus and we got supporting themes. So let's just grab all of that, take it down there, and we'll just store it away as another prompt, and we'll paste it in. And we come back to focal points are complete. Let's move on to the next area. 44 minutes in and we're not quite halfway, but a lot of these might collapse. Managing mention. What would you like me to proceed? Would you like me to proceed with this prompt? Yes. So this is wrong. It's wrong because this is something that happens as part of building the podcast prompt. At the moment, we have no podcast, so this hasn't actually happened. Now, this is not correct because we haven't yet developed a podcast transcript. All we've got is a live stream transcript, comma. Here is the problem I've been seeing, is that podcasts have been getting developed off live streams and then they overuse particular people's names or products when mentioning it when you're introducing the person or the product is important, and sometimes during the podcast it can be good to reinforce it, but it feels sometimes like it's every second or third sentence. So the way you've said that we're reviewing a transcript is not quite correct. This is more about developing just a single prompt that we can add into the final prompt for instructions to the podcast creation tool. And as I think it through, we may not want to have this task done until right at that final stage. Maybe we're doing it a little bit early as well. So for now, write the prompt as per what I've talked about, and then suggest where in the to-do list above this should actually go. As you develop a podcast script from a live stream, keep in mind the balance of mentions. Use the following guidelines. Introduce names meaningfully. Ensure the introductions are clear, engaging, and necessary. Avoid excessive repetition. This is all I wanted to do. Reinforce key mentions where appropriate, and if we're lucky, which one is it? It's mentions. There it is. Okay, that's cool. So we don't need to do anything with that. We certainly don't need to take it over to the other place yet. We'll come back to it, I think. I just hope, and I'm just going to duplicate this conversation for a second, throw it down the end, that I can come back to this section quickly. So that's it. That's the mentions area, but we are here. Okay, next is incorporate brand and style. Create calls to act. Okay, so I want you to merge incorporate brand and style and create calls to action. No. I want you to just ask the question for brand and style. What is your brand information and what is your style guidelines? The good thing about this particular question is that it probably should be right at the very beginning. It's kind of the input data, kind of like the transcript is input data. This is also input data. And I want it to move up to the very first stage because this is not anything more than a configuration option that will be static with each workflow. So these two values should be the very first stage, and we could name this stage configuration, and this stage could have two questions. What is your brand? details, comma, what is your style guidelines? That might be better. So I'm hoping to see a new config area with just two questions in it. Yep, great. What is the name of your brand and podcast? What are the key messages and themes? What are any should or should not use? This is perfect. This is good. Again, this is another area that we're going to have to just keep. What did I just do then? I think I just unpinned it. How did I do that? Let's go back here and duplicate it. Throw that down the bottom. That's something we're going to want, and we're in the final run. So those two have been moved up here. We don't want to craft. We want to go. Okay. Add one more question to the configuration. What are some general calls to action that you might want to see in the podcast? Perfect. So we got another configuration concept going on. Let's now create a prompt around the create calls to action, which will consider topics talked about in the transcript from the live stream to come up with some extra calls to action, such as a mention to another video or a mention to another product or another person. These are the sorts of things that can be derived directly from the transcript, and it can go into this create calls to action. It should also, if they're available, bring in a secondary list of the general calls to action that were in configuration. If there aren't any, it should just say none provided. Okay, so we haven't done the configuration, so it will be a none provided in this particular case, but we should now get a prompt based on the following transcript: generate relevant CTAs, what topics were covered. Okay, additionally, if none provided. So let's just take this information and we'll go over in the right area. So that's the summary. So this is where we're testing things. Okay, let's just paste this in. We got our transcript down the bottom. We'll just carry that and then go, we'll take that. I'm just going to go insert from configuration, and we'll just say none provided, and we'll run it and see what CTAs we get out of this. Follow the 30-day challenge is a good one. Check out Replit, that's a good one. Download the test your own AI automations. Watch related content. Okay, way too many of them. So, do I want to solve this now? No. This I'd solve later anyway, but from the direct mentions, just use 1, 2, and 3. And just have a simple like and subscribe CTA at the end. No, let's not do that. No others. So generally a call to action at the end, you'd only want one anyway. And I don't know where they're going to get put at the moment. What would be nice, can you make sure that there is just a little, let's not do that. Let's just take this information as it is. This is great. Call to actions, summary of the prompt. Let's take that. So where these get put into a podcast will have nothing to do with this part of the prompt. It'll have to do with the final construction prompt. So we'll just say read on this and paste it in. And then what we'll do is we'll come back here and this is done. What's the next prompt to work on? Can you write it for me? Also make sure that the table is updated. So now we got all the configurations done. Creating effective CTAs is done. Finalize. Okay. Now that we have gathered it's time to merge everything into a consider, does the podcast brief align with the main focus? Are all the talking points integrated smoothly? Does the CTA feel, well, like this again is wrong because it doesn't, like what are we doing it on? This is not right. Okay, let's take that one. That's part of style guidelines. Let's take managing mentions effectively. None of this is really right the way you've done it. What I think I want to do is have a bunch of inputs from previous prompt titles or stages and sections, and then I want you to create a coherent prompt that I can just copy and paste directly into Notebook LM. Now this won't be 100% right. I just know it. But what I want to do is like test it in the real world, and I'll have to manually change it over time. So we got that. Okay, great. Using the provided structured inputs from each stage of the workflow, create a well. I would get rid of that because when I'm using Notebook LM, it doesn't know what a workflow is. Create a well-organized podcast brief that aligns with the following and ensure that. Oh, okay, no, actually, it's okay for here. This is the prompt. Okay. Okay. Now, this is where I'm a little confused about whether I want to do it in this section, which is the prompt building playground, or whether we're actually ready to use it on the final section, which is the example output. So what I might just do here is say, can you give me a synthesized and complete listing of all the information that I've given to you? Generally, I would have given you a short description of the prompt that built the information, and I would have given you all the information. So this is the format I want you to follow as you give me the final output. Don't suppress any information. Keep the details. Let's see what we get. We got structured talking points. Cool. They're all there. Refined talking points. Hidden gems. This is great. Selected CTAs. They're the ones I wanted. This almost gives me the structure I want back here. Okay, but I'm just, for this live stream, I'm just going to run with this information. Example outputs. Let's see what we got. Let's run it. So hopefully what we're going to see is close to the prompt that I'd like to put into Notebook LM. Now, we haven't got inputs for this. Again, if I was using my own workflows, this would be static information that I've kept. Main focus, key talking points, hidden gems, memorable phases, unique insights. Okay, and I might only want one of these. Like I don't have to have all three of them. And CTAs, general CTAs, narrative structure. So this is a really good starting point, I think. So I don't know that I want to go much further with this because I don't plan to be using it with Notebook LM right now. The next step for me is to build it into a workflow. At the moment, we've just been developing the basic prompts that we need to build a podcast. And I think from your point of view, if you're watching this and you're going, well, where am I actually going to see it? So what we should be seeing soon, based on Happy Dave research, is that in the lives, we've been doing these videos on the on Replit. So Replit down here, we got different lives that are going through on Replit. And where we want to see them, we're not showing it, sorry. Come back here. So on Happy Dave Research, we've got these live streams on Replit. And on Happy Dave, we've got a podcast area. So over here, I'm going to start creating an area just for Replit. And this is where you're going to see it. And this might take a week or two for that to happen. But that's the nature of where we're at. So lastly, happydave.com. If you want to work with me developing workflows for your own business or prompt engineering or just understanding the AI agentic sort of landscape a bit more, then connect with me. I'm Happy Dave. I will see you in the next live stream.